All right, Maureen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we get from this step. So the file I sent you, if you're in the ISO living room, you'll see that it's in a sketchy mode. So the first step is that I need to go into the Styles menu and turn this back so it's just regular. If you are under the Select button and choose In Model, you'll notice that there's some different styles. These are things that we've used within the model. Go ahead and click on the last one here on the first row, and that will turn this back to what we're used to working with. All right. So what our goal here is we want to take this this unit, all these walls that we've got, and you'll do this at the very end when you're ready to start working on the kitchen. I want to turn this into basically a separate layer, and so I can basically start drawing the cabinets without these walls. So I need to do a Command A, and I need to group this. Okay, so I'm grouping it, so I'm going to right click and make it temporarily a group. Now, I need to move this to its own layer so I can start turning it on and off a little bit more easily. There's also different ways you can do this. For example, you could choose this and choose hide, but then getting it back is sometimes a little bit confusing. So we're going to use layers here. And with the layers, you can see that you may already have this, well, and you should if you're looking at mine, you've got this layer for walls. So if I wanted to move this to its own layer, and it might also, in your case, it might be on layer 0. So remember we had done some things, we had added the walls one here. If I want to though, I can click and create a new one and call it New Walls. And I want to basically make this the active layer. All right. If I turn this one off, you can see that my walls are definitely, this model is sitting on the walls layer, because if I uncheck this, it goes away. I want to make it so when I click on the new walls that it actually is on that layer instead. So you're going to click uh, there. So I want to select this, right click, and then choose Entity Info. And Entity Info is going to give us a little box. Let's see if it's hidden over here. There it is. Mine was behind another one. Also, if you move these around, they'll snap in place, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to move this up. But you'll see that it tells me what layer this is on. So I can change that by using the pop-down menu and choosing New Walls. So now if I make the Walls layer active and I turn off New Walls, you can see that it's now sitting on New Walls. So there we moved it to the new one. Now I want to make a new layer though and call it Cabinets. Kitchen cabinets. And I'm going to make this the active layer because in a moment I'm going to turn off the walls and only work on cabinets. So this is something that that it's kind of a technique where we can isolate these, and we can also draw them in a group. So the first thing that I want to do here is I'm going to go in and draw over the lines that are here, so I know where the cabinets are and what to draw. And you had already drawn lines. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, make sure my kitchen cabinets layer is active. I'm going to click and draw a rectangle. Click and draw another rectangle. In fact, I'm not going to go all the way. I'm just going to go here and then use the Move tool. And I have to press the space bar to get this, but use that. Move it along the green axis, and then I can hover on this top wall. And so when I do that, that brings it all the way to the other wall without me having to rotate around. Okay, at this point, I want to erase this joined line right here. And I see that there's this other box. And since this is already in 3D, I'm actually going to go underneath. So I'm just rotating underneath, and I'm going to draw this cabinet right here using a couple different ways. I could use a rectangle and then another rectangle on top of it. So I basically drew two rectangles, and then I can go in and delete the whole rest of the model. Undo. Undo is your friend. Hit the space bar and actually select that line and then select the other line. And make sure you get the line and not like that. I just clicked. You can see the blue lines over here. That's the entire model. So click here on this line, and it'll go away. And we now have something to work with on our kitchen cabinets. So now we could go ahead and uncheck the walls, and this shows us basically what our kitchen cabinets are going to look like. Now, one other thing is we had the toe kick on these, but we'll deal with that in just a minute. But the easiest thing you can do is use the push-pull tool, come up 24 inches, and then double click on this other one. We might go remove it from the other model too, just so we can manipulate it a little easier. When you've created your kitchen cabinets like this, we need to go ahead and put a place for the stove. So you'll have these dimensions here, but I'm just going to put a line. In fact, maybe I'm going to use a 24-inch base cabinet. So let me go ahead and use that. That's not good. Let's go 30. And remember too that if I pull this line, and let's say I put 24 and hit enter and it wasn't right, I could immediately type 36 and hit enter, and that looks good. So then I can pull another guideline that's 27 inches. Now I can draw a rectangle on the surface, use push-pull, and push that all the way to the back. Now it didn't go away, but if I use my eraser tool, I can click and get rid of those lines. Now I think that we have a refrigerator somewhere over in here, possibly, or let's just make one up. So I took a measurement in from the edge 30 inches, use the rectangle, make a rectangle there, and then push this all the way to the back, and it does disappear. So what we see is we're getting kind of the base we can work from for your cabinets. I can get rid of these lines. I usually just use the space bar, click lower right to upper left, and hit delete, and same over here. Now, if I want to work on the toe kick, let's do that. We can bring up a guideline. That's, and I'm just guessing. I don't remember the height of toe kick actually. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and draw a rectangle here. And I'll go ahead and draw another rectangle over here. Push this back maybe 2.5 inches, and then double click on this one. If I want to go around the corner, down here I can draw another rectangle, and I would choose the corner that's down here at the bottom. That's going to be the most efficient drawing, because when you get happy with SketchUp, you'll start figuring out that there's ways to do things in the fewest mouse clicks possible. Now if I use the push-pull tool and I double click, it still had retained the last indentation with the push-pull tool, so I didn't have to go in and guess at that or enter a dimension. All right, I'll step back and just show you the other way of doing this. If I had done a rectangle and chosen this point, I could come all the way down, but then I end up with an extra piece here that I have to erase. So that's an extra step, and then I can push-pull. So either way works, but one way has one fewer operation, so that's what I start looking for in SketchUp. Again, I'm using the spacebar to delete this line. Now we can start playing with the doors of the cabinets. And a couple different ways that I can do this. At this point, I could draw directly on this cabinet for the doors, or I can go ahead and triple click and group these. The reason that that's handy then is because if I make a door, I can actually then copy the door over. So as long as it's the right size. To start out, because you're drawing again on a new surface, you could use the push-pull tool, but look, it doesn't let me push-pull. And that's because it's a group. I need to create a new rectangle on the face of this. And then I could start drawing my doors. So let's say that on this one, if I did that door's a little bit too big. It's not visually attractive. Remember, I can right click on this. I can right click on this line. Oops, lost it. Right click on the line and choose divide. And this is where it's handy to use your divide feature. Then I can use my line tool and go look for these endpoints, and you'll have a cabinet face divided into 3 perfect doors. Now I want to do a push-pull. I'm going to do a push-pull here, so use the P, push-pull, and bring this out 3/4 of an inch. I can use the offset tool then to bring this in. Those are usually 2-inch face frames. And then I can push this back, push back the middle, and I'm going to hover over the back side of this door here. So it basically is making a surface that we can do a raised panel on. And I don't know if these are raised panels. I didn't look too carefully yet. But anyway, this is how you could do it. You can then use your offset tool to come in, however many inches you want. You might even, let's say 1.75. That's a little bit small. Let's come in again, maybe 1.25. There, that'll do. Now we use the move tool. And we want, if this other one's getting in the way, remember, use the space bar and pre-select this inner panel. I'm using the move tool, but if I just grab it and move it around, nothing really happens. The key is in this thing down here called a auto fold. So you want to use the command key and start pulling out until you see the green axis. Hold the shift key and move. And it didn't do it. It's having troubles with it. I should be able to hover over this edge and it's not behaving. Okay, so let's pull this out again. We know that the thickness of that door was 0.75. And so I just went ahead and entered in the dimension. So if you're having troubles with it, there are more than one way to do it. Okay, so if you look around, you can actually see that that is a raised panel door. Now the beauty of this is that if I went in and deleted the rest of these, I could actually make this door a unit. Let's go ahead and delete, and I'm just deleting the lines because now I'm going to triple click on this door, right click on it, and make it a group. You could also make it a component, but in this case it's not necessary. I want to use my move tool, hover over this corner, toggle with the option key, and move it over. And then I can type ×2 and hit enter. So in that case, I can use that repetitive copy, and all of those doors are different. So now if I said, this style isn't working for me, or if I wanted to put these on a different layer, I could go ahead and select these individually and then put them onto a new cabinet layer. So for example, I could put a new layer and call this alternate doors. And then come down here and actually change this to be on alternate doors. Okay, so just keep in the back of your mind that you can do this. But let's look for the original one, kitchen cabinets, and I'm going to put it back on that layer. All right, now on this other side here, I could, if I wanted, go ahead and use the move tool and copy over here and then make another copy and another copy. But here's the problem. Notice that these doors are not the same width. If I'm just mocking this up and these are custom, I could go ahead and select these, use the scale tool, and I would have to get situated over here, get a good view. In fact, you know what? Let me do one other thing. I would use the move tool and move these along the red axis. As soon as I hit the red axis, I hold shift. I'm going to hover over this corner back here. In reality, there would be, probably a strip there, at least a 3/4 inch filler strip. But with this, I could use the scale tool, and you want to grab that middle handle and then snap there. Now the problem with doing it this way is that as I stretch this, these are not the same frames. And with your kitchen cabinets, that frame is always going to be the same. So this is about 2 1/4. For that reason, I would probably redraw them just because I think it works. But again, if you're just doing a quick mock-up to show somebody, you could do this pretty easily. Again, you could copy these. If I wanted to copy one of these over, I'm going to copy it and remember the option key, move it out. I don't see that green. There's a green axis. I'm moving it into the cabinets to grab the green axis, hold the shift key, and then move it back out. If I hover over the top, I can see these little plus signs. And I can't see my measurements box, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the space bar to stop rotating and move this out of the way because at this point I really need that measurements box. I'm going to use my move tool, hover over the plus signs, and rotate until it's some variation of 90 degrees. Go ahead and click. And then I can go ahead and move this back. If I use the corner, like if I just grab this and move it back, I'm going to have a hard time. Grab this back corner here because I can see where it's going to meet up back over here at this endpoint. And when you use those endpoints, things will line up correctly. I'm going to use the move tool again and the option. And now I could go ahead and just say, you know, give me 6 of those. And that was too long. So I can then go back and type immediately ×5 and hit enter, or maybe ×4, enter. So that gave me enough copies that I could stretch this. Although remember, these are already stretched, so this is just really bad practice. But use your scale tool, scale, look for that middle handle, and then make this come out to the end. All right, now that these are all groups, now if I had done these as components too, if I had resized one, it would have resized all of them. But I'm going to go ahead and select these, and I'm going to just group them temporarily. I need my paint bucket. I want to go choose white from my color. Click on that. Click on my cabinet doors. They're now white. So now I have a couple groups. I have a group that's the doors, a group that's the cabinets. I could even select both and create one whole group. So just to make things neat. Now I need to go back to my layers and turn the walls back on. So remember that my new walls is the layer with the house. When I turn that back on, I can then choose to have the cabinets show. I might also want to go play around with this line. If I double click, I could actually move this line back. If I delete it, it's causing some really strange issues. So I'm just going to move it back out of the way where it's not visible. So with the kitchen cabinets, what I usually do is I'll go ahead and just draw them in place. I don't usually put put any lines or anything. So then at that point, when we look at the top, the plan view, or remember I've already set some scenes here, you can see that my kitchen cabinets are showing up just fine. And I could go in and bring in some appliances there, but I could click and go to the ISO view. Need to get rid of that style. Let's here's another ISO view of the kitchen. So, but that's how you can do the cabinets. One more thing, I'll show you the countertop. I'm going to turn off the walls again and come in and let's quickly do a countertop. The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and draw a rectangle on top of these groups. And the reason that we're drawing on top of a group is because then we can isolate the countertop and then paint it a different color. So I'm going to go ahead and draw all of my countertops. It is easiest and fastest to use rectangles to do this. You could use a line tool, but if you use rectangles, it's fewer steps. So we're getting into our efficiency again. I'm zooming in and out, going to bring this up 1.5 inches, and then double click on this other one, and you have that countertop. I do want this to come out a little bit from the cabinets, and I just put 0.5, let's go 3/4 inch. Then I can double click on this front here and double click on this. Now if I triple click, right click and make it a group, then when I paint it, it's going to paint all of them. So I grab my paint bucket, I'm going to choose wood, and let's grab a butcher blocky looking thing and go ahead and paint it. So now if you see, if I come back and the client says, what if we paint these cabinets black? I could go back, because these are separate, I can choose colors, and maybe we're going to go with a dark chocolate gray. Okay, and I click the back to paint those cabinets. It did not actually let me paint these. So if I double click to temporarily edit, I can grab my paint bucket again and paint the cabinet doors. And something from a drawing standpoint too. Within SketchUp, if you use pitch black, you can't see anything. So if I'm ever showing somebody something that is supposedly black, I go ahead and choose a lighter gray so it'll show off that there actually are panels. Okay, to get out of this, you hit the space bar and click outside the editing box, but there's your cabinets. Another thing you can do is you can also do different views where you have these in different colors or whatever, different cabinet doors, but you could use layers to turn those on and off. Go ahead and turn on your walls again. And there are some cabinets in our kitchen. If we look at the plan view, you can see it removes the perspective, but that shows us our cabinets. All right, so that's a little bit long of a tutorial, but this shows you how you can add those kitchen cabinets and keep that separate from your room.